Here's the weird truth of 2026. Teen culture is getting more sober, but the marketplace around them is getting more intense. It's a split screen. Fewer kids using the big three, while stronger, loopholey intoxicants show up in everyday retail. Take the Monitoring the Future survey from 2025. Past month abstention from all three, alcohol, cannabis and nicotine, stayed at historically high levels. About 91% of 8th graders, 82% of 10th graders and 66% of 12th graders reported using none of them in the last 30 days. And even among young adults, the default drug, alcohol, is sliding. In the 2024 National Survey on Drug Use and Health, past-month drinking among ages 18 to 25 fell from 50.9% in 2021 to 47.5% in 2024. But here's the paradox. While those traditional categories trend down, federal regulators are warning about products that look harmless on a shelf. The FDA has cautioned consumers not to inhale nitrous oxide sold for culinary whipped cream use. And they've also flagged hemp-derived intoxicants like Delta-8 THC, especially when they're packaged like familiar snacks. In this episode, we'll look at the sober generation data, why Nitrous and Ketamine are showing up in the conversation, and the regulatory reality check facing psychedelic therapy. We're not here to lecture or judge. We're here to explain the biology. Keep your eye on the mechanism visuals. We'll connect specific chemicals to specific harm, from nitrous-linked functional vitamin B12 deficiency that can damage myelin to ketamine-associated bladder inflammation and scarring. To help us navigate the numbers and the mechanisms, I'm joined by a public health analyst and a neurobiologist. Let's get into it.
If you only look at the 2025 headlines, it feels like the kids won. The NIH-backed Monitoring the Future survey, released December 17, 2025, shows teen abstention holding at historically high levels. In the past 30 days, 91% of 8th graders reported using no alcohol, marijuana, or nicotine, right there on the chart. And across multiple surveys, younger adults are drinking less than previous generations.
That sounds like incredible news. So if the big numbers are down, why are clinicians talking about these weird spikes, people fainting, injuries, ending up in the ER?
That's the sober paradox. Mainstream use is down, but certain niche products are booming, especially the stuff living in a retail gray zone. Like what you're seeing on that convenience store shelf. One of the most visible examples is nitrous oxide. You might know Whippets, but now it's sold in big flavored canisters under brand names like Galaxy Gas. On March 14, 2025, the FDA warned consumers not to inhale these products and noted they're sold online, in vape shops, and at gas stations as culinary items.
Right. I've seen those bright tanks. They're packaged like an energy drink, but it's just laughing gas, right? How dangerous can a culinary product be?
When you inhale it repeatedly, it stops being laughing gas. This is physiology, not morality, and it has two main ways of hurting you. First, it can displace oxygen and trigger hypoxia, fainting, accidents, and in worst cases, suffocation. Second, nitrous can inactivate vitamin B12 by oxidizing its cobalt center, and that shuts down critical nerve chemistry.
So you could be eating enough B12, but the gas basically makes it unusable.
Exactly. Without functional B12, your body can't maintain myelin, the insulation around nerves. Clinicians are seeing numbness, tingling, trouble walking, and spinal cord injury that can mimic degenerative neurologic disease.
And the mortality data reflects how serious this can get. A JAMA Network Open analysis, published online July 30, 2025, reviewed U.S. death certificate data for nitrous oxide poisoning. Deaths involving nitrous oxide poisoning rose from 23 in 2010 to 156 in 2023. That's a huge jump for something people can buy alongside snacks and vapes.
If it can kill people and cause nerve damage, why is it still on the shelves? Is there no regulation?
It's a patchwork. Because nitrous oxide has legitimate uses, most policies try to restrict retail access and add warnings, rather than ban it outright. Ohio's law took effect April 9, 2025, adding required warnings and restricting sales to people under 21. Oregon passed an age verification requirement for certain nitrous canisters that took effect January 1, 2026. But in many states, it still sits in that for food use gray market, right next to the vapes.
So we have a sober generation that's still vulnerable, just in these very specific, very accessible traps.
Precisely. And unlike alcohol, there isn't always an immediate warning signal. B12-related nerve injury can creep in quietly until the numbness starts and the damage is already serious.
We hear it's just a plant, like that settles it. But what's on dispensary shelves now, especially the vapes behind the counter, is the result of decades of selective breeding and extraction. It's not the same product people remember from the 90s. Before we get into potency, let's clear up the legal confusion. Everyone's talking about Schedule 3, but does that mean you can buy cannabis legally everywhere?
Not yet. As of January 27, 2026, the federal move to reclassify marijuana to Schedule 3 is still not final. There's been a proposed rule, but no completed, effective, final rule. And Schedule 3 isn't federal legalization. Even if it's finalized, it would change how cannabis is regulated for research and medicine, and it could shift taxes, but it wouldn't automatically make recreational sales legal nationwide.
So the law is still catching up. The product isn't. How much stronger is the cannabis people are actually using now?
By the best long-running federal potency tracking, the average THC in seized cannabis plant material was about 4% in 1995. By 2022, it was about 16%. And that's just flower. Concentrates, oils, waxes, vape cartridges are a different category. In a large Colorado secret shopper study, concentrates averaged about 71% THC.
70% THC. That's not a casual herb experience.
It also makes dosing harder to predict, because labels aren't always reliable. In that Colorado study, concentrates were usually labeled accurately, but flower was frequently off, and the errors tended to inflate THC.
That potency jump matters for the brain and behavior. Cannabis use disorder is common in young adults. Federal survey data puts it at about 16% of people ages 18 to 25 in 2024.
That's a big number. Is it mostly behavioral, or are there physical symptoms too?
There are physical risks too. One is cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome, CHS, severe, repeated vomiting that can bring people to the emergency room, and it's rising fast in teens. One national analysis found adolescent CHS emergency visits increased about 49% per year from 2016 through 2023.
And beyond the hospital, there's the road. A lot of people tell themselves they drive better when they're high.
That's a dangerous myth. Cannabis can slow reaction time and disrupt attention and judgment. So, I'm fine to drive can be exactly when you're not.
Finally, the stuff sold at gas stations, those Delta 8 gummies that look like candy.
That's the gray market. Delta 8 is often made by chemically converting hemp-derived CBD, and oversight is inconsistent. The FDA has reported hundreds of adverse event reports tied to Delta 8 products, including cases involving hospitalization or ER visits.
So whether it's legal, medical, or grey market, check the label, start low, and understand the risks. Next, we look at a therapy that hit a major roadblock. Why did the FDA say no to MDMA?
For years, the story was 2024 is when MDMA-assisted therapy becomes real medicine. But if you're looking at the timeline on screen, green to red, that's not what happened.
I remember the hype was massive. People were treating it like a done deal. What derailed it?
In early August 2024, the FDA sent the sponsor a Complete Response Letter, a CRL. That's FDA speak for, "We can't approve this as submitted."
And the warning shot came first. At the June 4, 2024 Advisory Committee meeting, the panel voted 9-2 that the evidence didn't show effectiveness, and 10-1 that the benefits didn't outweigh the risks.
That's brutal. Was it mainly a safety problem?
Safety mattered, but a big issue was, can you trust what the trials are measuring? With psychedelics, trial design gets messy fast. MDMA has noticeable effects, so even in a blinded study, participants, and often therapists, can frequently guess who got the real drug.
Right, and once people think they got the active drug, expectancy can inflate outcomes, especially when the treatment includes many hours of intensive therapy. The CRL also raised red flags about safety data reliability, specifically that some positive or favorable experiences relevant to impairment or abuse potential weren't consistently captured and reported.
Hold on. How can a positive effect be a safety problem?
Because regulators aren't only looking for felt bad. They also need a clear picture of intoxication, impairment, and reinforcement, signals tied to misuse and real-world risk. If you don't systematically record those effects, you can't reliably estimate things like duration of impairment or potential abuse signals. So, the safety profile has a big hole.
And then there's durability. The primary endpoint was at 18 weeks. For a chronic condition like PTSD, the FDA wants stronger long-term evidence. Think 6 or 12 months, not just the early curve.
So is the psychedelic renaissance basically over?
No, the door isn't shut. The security check got stricter. And you can see the field adapting in real time. Look at psilocybin. On June 23, 2025, Compass Pathways reported that its first Phase 3 trial of COMP360 psilocybin for treatment-resistant depression hit its primary endpoint at week 6. That's top-line data, not an FDA decision, but it's forward motion.
The takeaway isn't psychedelics don't work. It's they have to clear the same boring hurdles as every other medicine. Bias control, clean safety reporting, durable outcomes. Stories of transformation can be real, but approval runs on data you can audit, even when the patient can tell they're altered. Ketamine is a fascinating, complicated drug. In the US, it's a Schedule III dissociative anesthetic, and those little brown vials on screen are the real clinical form. In the brain, its primary action is blocking NMDA-type glutamate receptors.
But it's not just an anesthetic anymore. We see it everywhere as a breakthrough for depression. Why the sudden explosion in popularity?
It's the medical halo effect. People hear FDA-approved S-ketamine and assume all ketamine use is the same. The split-screen visual is the point. Supervised clinic care on one side, unsupervised at-home dosing on the other.
Right. Spravato, esketamine nasal spray, is under a REMS. It's administered only in certified healthcare settings with at least 2 hours of monitoring. It's not dispensed for home use.
Meanwhile, other ketamine products, often compounded, have been prescribed through telehealth and shipped to people's homes. That shifts the risk equation because the guardrails are looser.
So without that safety net, what is the physical risk? What is the trap?
The most specific long-term injury is to the bladder and urinary tract. Ketamine-associated uropathy, sometimes called ketamine cystitis. Ketamine and its metabolites end up concentrated in urine. The leading theory is that repeated exposure irritates and injures the bladder lining. Over time, That can become chronic inflammation and scarring. The wall thickens, stiffens, and becomes painfully oversensitive.
So the bladder actually shrinks.
In severe cases, yes. Pooled findings across published case series put average functional bladder capacity at around 95 milliliters. A standard 12-ounce soda can is 355 milliliters. So you're talking about a bladder under a third of that.
And this isn't a one-off. One meta-analysis found hydronephrosis, kidney swelling from blocked drainage, in about 30% of reported cases.
That's the backup into the kidneys. And on the ultrasound, you can literally see the collecting system ballooning. Left untreated, it can damage kidney function and sometimes needs urgent urologic care.
That's incredible. I think most people assume the risk is just in their head. Speaking of which, does it damage the brain?
Acutely, the big risks are impairment, dissociation, poor coordination, blood pressure spikes, nausea. At home, that can mean falls or choking. And mixing it with alcohol, opioids or benzodiazepines is where things can get dangerous fast. Long term, the picture is concerning. Brain imaging studies of heavy, non-medical use have found associations with lower grey matter volume and reduced cortical thickness across multiple regions. Important caveat: these are mostly observational, cross-sectional studies, so they can't prove cause and effect. But the pattern shows up across data sets. Heavy, prolonged use doesn't look brain neutral.
So the trap is thinking it's safe because it's medicine, while it slowly remodels your organs.
Exactly. Same molecule, different context. Dose, frequency, and setting decide whether it's therapy or harm. Anatomy doesn't care what story you tell yourself.
Today's through line is simple. Even as more people lean into sobriety, risk hasn't vanished. It's shifted. And like the split screen behind me, the calm side and the neon new high can exist in the same world.
Exactly. It's not just about getting high, it's biology. With nitrous oxide, heavy or repeated use can disrupt vitamin B12 and injure the nervous system. If you notice numbness or tingling, weakness, or you suddenly feel unsteady on your feet, stop and get medical care promptly.
And ketamine has its own red flags. Frequent or urgent urination, burning, pelvic pain, or waking up all night to pee can be signs of ketamine-related bladder injury. Don't power through it. Stop using and get checked. Go to urgent care or the ER if there's severe pain, blood in your urine, fever, or you can't pee.
We're putting a safety card on screen. In the US, you can call Poison Control at 1-800-222-1222. Free, confidential, 24/7. If someone collapses, has a seizure, can't breathe, or can't be awakened, call 911. And for a mental health or substance use crisis, you can call or text 988. Your brain is the hardware. Treat what you take like a real install with real consequences. Stay safe, stay informed, and we'll see you in the next episode.